Okay, it's Kid Charlemagne back with For the Roses, the fifth album by Joni Mitchell, released in 1972. That cover you just saw, I don't have the physical copy on me, but I believe I'll take it as the second best cover to date behind the Lovely Clouds painting. I love the nature. She seems to be rolling up some drugs. Um, it's all very quite candid, I find it. I love her clothes and how they are camouflaged, and she kind of becomes the landscape. How this cover really translates to the words and the actual music of content of this album thematically, I'm not finding it, but that's okay. The title For the Roses, what does it mean? Well, like technically speaking, For the Roses is kind of like for the glory. You run a marathon, a sprint, you get past the finish line, all the flowers, bright lights, charades, all for the it's glory. But this title for this album, when you consider kind of what it's about thematically, is much more in jest and not incredibly celebratory. It almost means the opposite of like kind of finishing a marathon, because for what was it all for? For what? For the roses? What roses? Kind of. It'll make sense when you kind of grasp onto the actual themes and the story of this album, because it is actually a bit of a concept album in some senses. Actually, I do believe that, but you'll figure it out soon. But the banquet, the opening track, so initially the first kind of couple listens, I found this merely to just be like a solid opener, um, something with a concise structure and hook, but lyrically, I do think it's quite interesting to view in a contemporary sense, in kind of what was going on in the world at that point, and kind of how prescient it still is today. The banquet, it's kind of a proper come down. I see it from like the 50s, that nuclear gratification of life, and into the 60s, that time of peace and protest and hope for change. And then it's like a come down into the 70s of, hey, for the roses. What was all that for? Like, what was all this protest and like peace movement for if um, all of our leaders get killed and all the hippies turn into Wall Street stock market? Isn't that what they say about like the hippies? Anyway, but no, I think it's a interesting look at kind of that sense of like limbo feeling in kind of, because it's in 1972, so it just comes out of the 60s, and the 60s ended quite horrifically with the Manson murders. That was like the death of the 60s and the cost of all hope. But anyway, into the actual song, it is kind of like the reality of what the American dream is. She makes it kind of clear in her words, as kind of it's like, oh, what do we do with our dream now in what we were given in when we were born? Because like, she just lists out all these, like, some get the blah blah blah, some get the blah, and kind of like talking about all this, the difference and the lack of equality and equity between people, and in America specifically. And it's kind of very plainly stated again in how some get the gravy, some get the bone, and or the marrow, and some get nothing. And even though there's plenty to share, so I also kind of, I won't be crass in what the American dream is here. It's kind of, it's just simply getting rich, really, and kind of easy to think about it that way, but also kind of in what the song is saying. And the train kind of just stops there in a in the traditional thinking, because like okay, you get rich, you achieve the American dream, but like what now? Because what is if all you were working towards in life was getting rich, then what else do you really do? What else do you really have to offer for yourself and for kind of like your life or the world besides just getting rich, however that actually means to you personally? I don't understand because it's like a journey to a certain point that everyone works towards or thinks they're hoping to work towards. But once they get there, once they actually achieve this dream that they bemoan about, what next? What makes your life so much better and different? What plans do you actually have once you're rich? Is it just is it like all your kind of like problems evaporate? It's I don't know, but I mean she kind of acknowledges this ambiguity herself, and kind of listing out the results of those who I guess lose out on this dream or give up on this dream or stray from the path of this dream of getting rich and being financially free and independent. There are benefits to it, but like the idea and how it's presented in this kind of American dream is quite a little lacking, I think, in full thought. But she says they find heroin, they find Jesus, and they even find fulfillment in just children. They just settle down. They call it, and even while they settle down with children, they're still watching their stocks and bonds, waiting for that to just magically hit, and so they can get that big American dream, even while they've settled down. Um, but then, what about Mitchell herself? How does she feel about herself? As she can, I mean, if she's able to write this song and translate these thoughts and feelings about kind of the American dream and money, surely she has some self awareness. Um, and yes, she does. But her self awareness is her own limbo and her own kind of like authenticity in this ambiguity as um, she kind of is still unfulfilled, even though she's kind of made it to that dream. So she kind of lives out what she is talking about and what I'm kind of saying, and how she's achieved where she wants to be in her own American dream. She's or an incredibly successful, highly praised musician, lots of money, can basically do whatever she wants. She could probably just retire right away and do nothing, um, but she still kind of feels unfulfilled in many ways. It's very similar to like Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, but that's a whole another story. It's kind of the same deal though. She says she sees like the Yankee yachts, and she took her dream down by the sea, Yankee yachts and lobster pots and sunshine. Um, but later in that verse, she says she sees back in the banquet line. She can see the angry and young people crying. So she sees the top of the ladder. It's like the top of the ladder, she sees the Yankee yachts, and then the bottom of the ladder, she sees the angry young people. She's kind of just on the roof watching. Um, I guess all she has is her words and her music, which she does continue to put out. So, in that unfulfillment, in that ambiguity, she does do something with her awareness. It's I think it's a great song, and I think it's quite a bit more thoughtful than Big Yellow Taxi. But Cold, Blue Steel, and Sweet Fire. So this song and album really is about Joni Mitchell finding about it jazz. No, but the it sounds like a saxophone, but it's actually just woodwinds and reeds in the song, and very stupid. So I thought it was a saxophone, but that the fuzzy electric guitar that comes in it gives this music just a fresh sound as we just get into the second track of the fifth album. So, um, obviously, she's very known for her lyrics, but when you listen to the music, it's interesting to watch how an artist like her, songwriter, um, kind of evolves and does what she does musically to incorporate what she can. The words, though, this is like the kind of like a dark sister angel to Velvet Underground's "Waiting for My Man," because they're both kind of about like drug addiction, but the Lou Reed song is like, yeah, I'm gonna go get my drugs, and um, but it's kind of like it's a good time, that song. But this one, not so much. This one's a lot more interesting because this is like she's the neighboring eye. She's not addicted to drugs. She doesn't have the addiction. She's not buying drugs, but she's the witness to her partner who is very addicted, and so it's quite a interesting perspective. And I really like the tone in this singing here. It's quite like reserved and withdrawn in how distant she now feels with a person she once loved, but she's lost now to drugs. It's also quite filmic, I find it, especially kind of in that first stanza, like the sweet fire heroine. Um, it kind of poses as like the devil saying, "You can't deny me," and the shadow of the lady released. That was an interesting line. It's I found it like, is it comparing like the ecstasy of heroin to the ecstasy of climaxing with a woman? And since the man who he's climaxed with a woman and he gets so much of that, he he's looking for more and more and more of a high, and he searches for that through heroin. Maybe not exactly what she meant, but kind of what was going on in my mind. Good song. Bar and Grill. So I'm not incredibly enthusiastic with this song. It's not bad, but it kind of feels like a retread of that Ladies of the Canyon song. Uh, Three different portraits of like common folk that she kind of is observing. Um, it's fine. It's a fine tune. Vocally, listening to it, it's nice, but she's just singing about the normal people again that she notices. I don't know. Just nothing new thematically, I think. So it passes, but not the best work here. Lesson in Survival. This is a good solid song about like the plateau in a relationship. You're gonna start to catch on to what this album is really about. Lyrically, it's quite clean and mature, and it kind of sacrifices any like poetic satisfaction for just blunt feelings, which is not a slight, because like this this song works because of its like just sheer imagery and not in spite of the imagery. So it works just for the words coming out of her mouth and just what you can see in your head from those words. And sometimes they'll be poetic, and sometimes she will be quite deep with it. But this song is kind of just pure emotion, and I think it kind of just works or it doesn't with you. It works for me. Let the Wind Carry Me. The woodwinds, the reeds, they're back. They bring a very earthly atmosphere. I like this. It's a very interesting song musically, like saying, because these instruments, they, as she starts to incorporate more sounds, they start to bring the rise of this operatic feeling and orchestral atmosphere that she brings later on. But she's kind of throwing hints in here. She does more in the last song, the Moon song, but and it kind of plays. She has a little middle part for a minute that plays before the second half verses kick in. That's quite nice. I like that. And I kind of think it just mirrors how free spirited the words are. Um, but yeah, not like the most memorable song for me lyrically. The title track for the Roses. See. This one's dense. Well, coming off some other songs, but just the kind of continuing downfall, the slow downfall in this album of falling out of love with someone. I mean, lyrically, um, there's kind of, I mean, there's some like Dylan like scorn to these words. I think this is the most scornful song in the album, in an album that is about kind of cutting the final thread that connects you with someone. Um, like, did you get the resounding applause for you? There's like I mean, yeah, there's that just subtle um, scorn and sadness, and like how the faces bit. But yeah, no, it's um, kind of like there's some lines, but no, it's good. Um, but yeah, no, I mean the third stanza there, it kind of comes back to the like while I said there was some scorn, it kind of comes back to the person she once knew. That was kind of like independent and earnest and full of love songs, but is now just that company man lost to the music industry. And she kind of comes off ungrateful and bitter, and but she says so with her kind of with her own like teeth sunk in the hand that brings me things. That was a good line. It's a good song. The See You Sometime. I thought this was quite good. There's a lot of like, I keep saying like the bitterness and regret, and but those feelings, they work authentically on songs and albums that deal with these feelings. They work because um, they're stemming and they come from a place that was once full of love. So when the opposite feelings kick in, they may not, they may be overdone, but they're like authentic in the party that is spewing them out. Um, and then in the end, it's kind of like through all this bitterness, she still wants to see him sometime. It's kind of not entirely like Idiot Wind Dylan, but like in Idiot Wind, um, he's constantly calling her an idiot, but then at the end of the song, he's like, "We're both idiots." So they both work. Okay, Electricity. Um, the electricity as like a metaphor for love and how two lovers are inputs and outputs for each other. Next song. No, I that's reductive, but this song's a little bit too spelt out for me. I mean, just read the lyrics. It's not quite good. I don't really like this song. Um, I don't think it's very kind of. I don't find it very poetic in any way. So we're going to the next song. You Turn Me On, I'm a Radio. It's kind of in contention for like the worst title besides Morning Morgantown. But no, it's a great song. A great put it on song. Very breezy. It opens with a harmonica. Where have I heard that before? Bob Dylan. Never mind. But it's another song that's kind of like a stupid, obvious metaphor. That's very just plainly written out. But this one gets the pass because she kind of admits that when she says, "I'm a little bit corny." Well, see, she's saying I'm right, but no. I think this is a very endearing song. It's playful, self-effacing, and it comes off and kind of branches out and like is still kind of connected to that overarching theme of the romantic withdrawals of a relationship, and how you may be done one day and kind of then available the next day. Um, it's an enjoyable song to listen to, at least. Blonde in the Bleachers. Is she the blonde in the bleachers? I no, but lyrically, just the words on the page, you read it out, not really doing a lot for you. But um, yeah, it's kind of a nothing song when you just read the words. But then you get the vocals and the music, and that's kind of what she's here for. It really brings the song alive when I'm not seeing a lot vocally, especially with those double tracks that come in. I like that bit a lot. Not a bad track. Woman of the Heart and Mind. So a lot of these songs are quite intimate and, obviously directed at a certain individual, like a specific person she personally knows. And that actually doesn't mean anything to you or me. No, this is not specifically to her in music, but um, these feelings and these experiences are universal. So it doesn't mean anything for us to know specific details about who and what she's talking about, but the poetry and the words um, are universal, and that's why they work in songs. Um, but yeah, no, it's a song full of pleading and also someone who's kind of like still at the last ledge and that last thread. So it walks the line. I like that song. Then the final track, Judgment in the Moon of the Stars. It's a great title. It's a great closing track, and it really seals off and kind of brings the whole circle together of kind of this thread and this whole theme of kind of being on the ledge in a relationship that's basically over. But once a relationship ends, it could end yesterday, but then today it's still something you think about entirely. And also, like I mentioned before, like the middle section here is just those instruments kind of just, she's still, it's kind of proto Paprika Plains in the kind of what the instruments are doing, in that kind of, it has a very operatic feel to it and kind of mini orchestral feel. But I do like in the song that it's very redemptive in who she's speaking to, because as I've talked about, the rest of the songs are quite scornful, and so that last verse is very hopeful and triumphant for someone she's finally cutting off. So it's like, I guess all relationships, when they end, you're not, it's hard to be completely 100% just hateful and just done with this person. There's always still a little love and good feelings to be spared over. But that was the album. I guess my final thoughts. I do. This made maybe some transgressions. I think it's like a really great album. I think it's definitely one of her best. Coming off of Blue, obviously it's not as good, but it's still a pretty good outing after. It's like almost feels kind of hard to judge in some senses because of how narrowly focused and how much of a concept album it is. But I still think it comes off quite good. And what I mean when it's like hard to really pin down feelings on an album like this is like there's just not a lot of like hit songs on this album, not a lot of songs you can just pull out and stand out on their own, except I think The Banquet, which is the best song on the album, and it's also the first song on the album. So I mean, I'm not like a stickler for like track lists and track placements, but it's but I guess the banquet isn't like quite related to what the album's about. But anyway, we're getting the 4 stars for this album. It's great. Um, the next one should be good too. Goodbye.